we need to know that because we need to make sure that we're doing the proper screenings for you to be able to, okay, this isn't going to work. Welcome to my channel. If you haven't seen any of my videos before, my name is Natalie. I am a family nurse practitioner, and basically the goal of my channel is to help pre-nursing, nursing, as well as FNP students get through school as easily as possible. I also take a look at resumes and personal statements, so if that's something you need done, please take a look at the description box down below and it'll tell you about the process of how that can be done. So for this video, I wanted to talk about how new patients can prepare for their first visit at the doctor's office, especially primary care, because I know sometimes, we as providers ask a lot of different things that maybe the patients aren't ready to answer, or they just haven't thought about, and they're not really prepared because they don't always know what we're going to ask, which is completely fair. So I thought this video would be good for people maybe who are patients and who are seeing their first primary care physician, and how to prepare, what types of things that we're going to ask, especially on your first visit. But this is also good for FNP students or anybody in the field to kind of have an idea of what you should be asking these patients. And maybe you can help, if you're in clinical rotation, maybe you can help design kind of like a paper to give to these patients so that they can fill things out ahead of time, so that they can have everything in place. They know the information, they know what questions they want to ask, they have all the information ready, so that when they're there for their appointment, it goes way smoother and it's not, taking longer than it should. So I just wanted to go over the different steps of a new patient visit, of the types of questions that providers are going to ask, so that you as a student can know what you're going to ask, and that if you are watching and you're a patient, you can have an idea of what to write down, what questions to have in mind, what information to gather before your first appointment. So the first thing that we as providers are probably going to ask you are, what are you diagnosed with? So basically that means if you have high blood pressure, diabetes, asthma, any type of condition that you have been diagnosed with in your whole lifetime, whether it's congenital, whether you're born with it, or it's something you've developed, that's something that we need to know, because we need to make sure that you're taking proper medications. We need to make sure that your regimen is good for you, that it's actually working, whatever was put in place prior. And it's a good basis for us to know moving forward. So if you have anything moving forward, we can go see maybe if it has anything to do with your conditions now, but that's something that we need to know. And I know some people might get confused with the word diagnose, but it's basically anything that the doctor has told you previously that you have. You've had asthma, you've had COPD, heart condition, whatever it is, that's what diagnosing means. So whatever you were diagnosed with, what the doctor has told you you have. And most of the time, well, not most of the time, but sometimes whatever you're diagnosed with is going to coincide with your medication. But sometimes people are diagnosed with things that people don't take medication for. So it just depends, but that's basically what we need. So if you want to write a list of what you've been diagnosed with, or maybe you have previous papers indicating what you have, bring those in with you so it can be a little bit more of a speedier process for you. So my dog wants to make an appearance, but the next thing that we're probably going to ask you is okay, you need to sit down, is your family history. And that's basically your primary family. So your mother, your father, any siblings that you have, any grandparents or aunts that have some significant health conditions that we need to know. So what things that we're really wanting to know are different cancers that run in your family. That's important, such as breast cancer, colon cancer, pancreatic cancer, whatever it is. That's something that we'd really like to know, especially if it's in your mom or your dad have it. Another thing we want to know is any family members that have passed away early on, so most likely before 50, due to any type of cancers, because we need to know that, because we need to make sure that we're doing the proper screenings for you to be able to, okay, this isn't going to work. The proper screenings for you at an earlier time, because let's say, for example, you get a colonoscopy, it says to get one at 50, but if you have a history of colon cancer in your family, we're gonna wanna do a colonoscopy earlier than that. So those are the things that we need to know. So just write down who in your family has anything significant, any significant conditions, any type of cancers, any type of death that was earlier than warranted, probably earlier than 50. Those are things that we need to know. So just write those down, because sometimes it's hard to remember right where you're at the doctor's office because it's a lot to remember and a lot to go through. So if anything from this video that I would like, you know, as a provider for someone to prepare for is the family history, because that could take longer to remember, unless you don't have much of a family history, which is great. In terms of significant conditions, then that's something that I think you guys should write down, and just be aware of as students that it might take a while to get those questions answered, because some people have a significant family history. So that's something to keep in mind as well. So the next thing we'll probably ask you is your social history. So basically, do you smoke? Do you drink? Do you do any recreational drugs? We're not asking those questions to be nosy. We just want to make sure that we have that in place, because if there's some condition that you're having that could be related to the drugs or the alcohol or whatever, we need to know that what your baseline is. So that's important. Also, we'd like to know in terms of where you live, in terms of environment, because sometimes environmental causes can be the cause of whatever condition you have. So like, let's say you have significant asthma or significant allergies, and you live in a place where there's a lot of pollution, or you live in an area where there's a lot of trees and you're allergic to trees, or you're allergic to some type of grass, which a lot of people are. That's something to keep in mind, because obviously we can't say, you know, you need to leave where you're living, but at least we have some sort of idea that if it's an environmental cause versus an internal cause versus, you know, a medication cause, you know, there are a lot of different things to take into consideration. So we're not asking those things to be nosy or to judge or anything like that. We just need a basis to see what can be the cause, what could be the originating cause of whatever conditions that you have. The next thing we'll ask you if there are any screenings that you have done. And we're talking about mammograms, colonoscopies, DEXA scans, AAA ultrasounds, stuff like that, to see what you have done and maybe what you're due for. And also we'd like to know what ages you've done it and the last time you've done one of those screenings, just to see, because again, like let's say you're going for a colonoscopy, normally you'd start screening at age 50. But if you said that you've got one at 35, we're probably gonna ask you, why'd you get one at 35? We can lead back to the family history. Oh, my, you know, father has a history of colon cancer, whatever. So that's important for us to know too, if you can remember when the last time you got it and what the result of that last screening was, so that we can know where to move forward. Because if you had a negative screening, great, we'll just do another one when it's warranted. And then if you have one that is positive, we need to make sure that we follow up with the appropriate specialties to get that taken care of. The next thing we're probably going to ask you is what you're allergic to. So basically, are you allergic to any type of food, seafood, dairy, anything like that? Are you allergic to any type of medications, or are you allergic to anything in the environment? As far as medications, I think some people get confused, as I was before, with regards to an allergic reaction to a medication. Sometimes people come in and they say, like for example, lisinopril is a hypertension medication. One adverse effect that could come from that is significant coughing. And people say, oh, I'm allergic to lisinopril because I cough. You're not allergic to the medication, you just had an adverse reaction. So we would just switch you to another medication. But when we're talking about allergic reaction, we're talking about, you know, like any type of anaphylactic shock. Are you sneezing? Do you have hives? Do you feel like your throat is being closed? Because one thing is trying a medication that could really be helpful, and if you just have a little reaction, we can find something to counteract that, versus you having a significant reaction to it where there's no way we would ever put you on that medication again or that drug class again. So that it's definitely good to say that. I would rather say more than less, in terms of, like, you know, saying, yes, I had a reaction to lisinopril and it was a cough, so that we know to not put that on there. But as far as just education, that is not really a allergic reaction to the medication. But just tell us everything, but just to let you guys know that that's not a real reaction. It's just an adverse effect. The last thing we're going to ask you is what medications you're on. So this can be a little bit of a task, because some people don't remember the names or the dosage or how many times they take it. So what I recommend all patients to do is just bring your medications in. There's no need to write it down or anything. Or if you just want to take a picture of the bottles of your medication to make it easier, and then when we input it into the chart, we have that all there, because we need to know the name, the dosage, how many times a day you take it, when did you start the medication, all that type of stuff. And I mean, I don't remember everything, that I would take, but I think that's a good way to bring it in. I've had patients when I was in clinical just bring a bag of their medications, and that was very, very helpful. Don't think that it's like a nuisance or anything, because it's more helpful that we get all the information that we need to get into the chart as a baseline for you on that first day and not have to play catch up later on. So whatever information that you can bring ahead of time is great, because the reason why that first visit kind of takes so long is on kind of both ends. Sometimes patients don't have all the information that we need, and sometimes it takes a long time for us to input it into the chart because that's your first time being there and we need that first baseline of information. So that's why it takes some time. So having this information already in your mind or written down or anything like that really helps speed up the process. And the last thing that I would recommend for patients to do is have a list of questions that you'd like to address. Typically, we can't address every single concern that you have on the first visit because that visit would probably take 3 hours long. So what I would recommend you guys do if you're a patient is to write down all the concerns that you have, and we can decide which one are the most life-threatening concerns. Because if you come in saying, oh, I'm concerned because I have a lipoma on my arm, it's not really doing anything, but it's just kind of, cosmetically not pleasing. And then you come and say also that you have heart palpitations. Or we're not going to really address the lipoma right now. We're going to address the heart palpitations because that can lead to something life-threatening. So if you have a list of concerns, write them all down. You can give it to us and we can say, okay, this we can address at another time, and this we should really be addressing now. So obviously not all patients are expected to know what is a more life-threatening symptom than others, but write everything down that you would like to address, and then we can decide what would be the best thing to address now to take care of, and see if you need to be referred to, any specialties or anything, and then we can address the least concerning concerns at another visit. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope this was helpful both on the patient end and on the student end. It's good to kind of know what to be expected to know and what you're going to be asked, because you like to have this information ahead of time so that the appointment can go way more smoother, and then it can be a quicker process, because I know a lot of times it takes a while being at the doctor's office, and I know not everyone loves to spend so much time there. So having this information at hand would be good. I recommend if you are a student to maybe have a list of this stuff with you. You probably will already have it in your EMR, and you're probably going to have to be, memorizing the order and what you're going to ask anyway. But it's nice to have so that maybe you can give it to patients or recommend to your preceptor, hey, I have this list here. Maybe you can give it to the patient ahead of time so that the process can be a little bit more quick. So thank you guys again. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me or leave a comment down below. Again, if you need any help with reviewing your resume or personal statement, there's a whole description of what can be done and how the process goes. Thank you again, and remember to always believe in yourself. All right, you guys have a great one. Bye.